So, hello and welcome. My name's Steve Nobel, and today I'm speaking with Venus O'Hara on orgasmic manifestation. Now, Venus is a holistic self-love content creator. She's the author of Orgasmic Manifestation, Transform Your Life with Your Sexual Energy. There's a link to her website, Instagram, and podcast channel, which will go out with this recording. So, hi, Venus.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Great. You're in hot Spain. It's very hot over
I
there, I think.
am. It's hard to actually think in this weather. Yeah.
Yeah. How's the kind of the other heat in Spain? You know, there's the weather and there's the kind of passion. Spain sounds like a passionate country. Is it passionate?
I would say so. What attracted me to Spain in the first place was how people were able to express their emotions and feelings without alcohol.
Yeah. Okay.
Very different from the UK.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
different from the UK. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about the book. What is orgasmic manifestation? For those who go, well, what is it?
In basic terms, it's setting an intention for your orgasm. So it's kind of like the law of attraction, which is like a law of attraction is more of a vibration or frequency. Um, Whereas this is more of a specific practice during sexual activity. That could be solo activity or partnered activity. So instead of just thinking about pleasure and connection, you might be thinking about, oh, I want a new car, I want a new house. So it's kind of bringing in the non sexual desire to the sexual. And I'm very interested in the non sexual application of sexuality. I just think it's super interesting as a personal development tool, as a healing tool. And yeah, just improve your life that goes beyond pleasure. Mhm.
Does this kind of focus, or have you found it could possibly disconnect you from your partner? Like imagine you're with a partner and suddenly you're thinking about your new car and not them. Would they feel a slight disconnect or not necessarily?
Well, I think consent is very important. So I
Yeah.
think if you're practicing sex magic, you should definitely. It's also called sex magic. You should always let your partner know. Personally, I'm not really into partnered practice because I just think I'm just present and mindful in those moments. I have tried it a couple of times, but I didn't really find it to be yes, it wasn't really what I wanted to experience. And I do have a chapter in the book called Multiply the Magic, because I do think when you duplicate or double the energy towards a shared goal in particular, it can be very powerful. So I've heard lots of couples who've said they've paid off the mortgage this way. So, I mean, it's a great way to pay off the mortgage.
Gosh, fantastic. Wonderful. Well, what led you to writing the book?
Well, I actually got a book deal with a big publisher in Spain, and it
Yeah.
flowed so easily. I mean, I discovered the practice in 2018. And ever since then, I've had a lot of press about it. I've been in The Guardian, I've been in Apple News, Grazia, and I've given lots of workshops about it. And everything related to it just seems to flow. So I met up with a publisher about a year ago, one that I'd previously written a memoir with, and I was just kind of catching up to see what kind of book I could write. And told them about this technique, and they're like, "We love it. Write the book." And it just kind of flowed, and I kind of channeled the book in Spanish, even though I hadn't written Spanish in for 10 years. So I live in Spain, by the way. So it was like it was very interesting process. Yeah, it flowed a lot. Mhm.
Wow. And what was your kind of background before writing the book in sex magic? Had you kind of tinkered a lot in it or?
Yeah, well, I discovered it through necessity, like many, stories of transformation. You have to hit rock bottom sometimes to start thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And
Yeah.
I had a very challenging weekend in March 2018, and I had some friends who were meeting to go for a vegan dinner, and it was 15 euros, and I couldn't afford to pay 15 euros for this meal, and I was so lonely. So I was thinking, what do I do? Do I spend the rent money on this dinner? So I thought, you know what, I need to see people. So I went along for this meal, and at the end, I was counting every euro. At the end, my friends said, "Oh, we're going to have a cocktail," and I was like, "Oh." And they said, "I'll get you a cocktail." I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." So someone bought me a mocktail. Obviously, I don't drink alcohol. And then after that, I walked home in the rain without an umbrella, no money for a taxi, and I really felt desperate. And the next day, I was sitting on the beach in Barcelona, even though it sounds great, looking at these wild waves. I thought something has to change. So I started Googling self-help content, and I can't even remember what I was looking for, but I came across Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I'd heard of that
Mm.
book, but I didn't really know of it. So I thought maybe it's time to discover this book, and I found out in it that there was a chapter called "The Mystery of Sex Transmutation."
Mm.
And I'd been a sexpert for 9 years because I've been focused on female pleasure for a long time, and I was always, trying to promote pleasure and especially educate women on how the importance of prioritizing pleasure, not just serving their partners, but actually connecting with themselves. And I thought I'd reach the pinnacle of what pleasure meant. And it was, let's say sexuality was this big old house. I thought I knew that house very well. And all of a sudden I discovered there's a new door with a new room that I didn't realize existed. So that was what it was like to kind of discover that sexuality was a really powerful tool that could be used for manifestation. But then in the book of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about sex transmutation, which is a bit
Yeah.
different. It's about, let's say, having an intention, or let's say if you have sexual feelings in your body, instead of indulging in practices of sexuality, or having the action, the act of masturbation or sex, you would do another action, such as writing the book you want to publish, or going to the gym, or something like that, with this pent up, this increased energy levels that you have in your body. So you're trying to kind of, or even through breath or meditation and thoughts. So it's just a different action, not a sexual action. But that sounded like a form of orgasm denial to me, which as my
Mm.
job as a sex toy reviewer, I thought maybe I can just so I started Googling sexual energy and sexual energy and manifestation, and I came across a video called How to Manifest with Your Orgasm. I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I started immediately.
Gosh, yeah. So what are there a variety of practices? I know your book's got some exercises and processes, but is there a number of ways in, you could say?
Absolutely, and I think the practices that I share in my book, it's all about how elaborate your imagination is. Like if you're someone who doesn't want to alter your normal practices very much, there are ways to do it without too much interruption. Because I mean, as we mentioned earlier, like thinking of paying the mortgage during sex might not be arousing for lots of people.
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah.
some very basic techniques with a minimum interruption of your normal routine, whereas there are others that are kind of way more elaborate, trying to making a big ritual out of it. So
Yeah.
there's a whole variety depending on what you want to do and how much time you've got.
Okay. So if you're like at home by yourself and if you're, engaging, thinking, well, I want to manifest a new house, and you're
Mhm.
getting aroused because you've got this beautiful partner or your neighbor's beautiful or something. So there's a kind of, let's say a beautiful neighbor. Wow, this amazing neighbor. I'm very, very attracted to this neighbor. And is there a kind of split going on because you're thinking about the neighbor and then the house and then the neighbor? How does it work? How can you hold the two things together, as it were?
Well, it depends if the neighbor is in the existing house or in the new house. In that case, I
Yeah,
mean, if your neighbor's that hot, you might not want to move. But I
yeah,
think that I have a whole chapter called "Eroticize Your Desire." This is a technique that I invented, and this was the first technique that I started because I wasn't aware that what I was doing was called sex magic, or that it was called orgasmic manifestation. But since then, I've read all the books I can find about it. And I'm someone who's in my job for the last 10 years has been reviewing sex toys. So, masturbation is part of my work. And before this practice, I was thinking about, triggers just to kind of get me to orgasm. So I have a very elaborate imagination, very, very creative imagination. So I just thought for me, it was kind of easy to, let's say, imagine this new apartment I'm in now. I was imagining being here and actually, what would it be like to being barefoot on this floor. I was thinking of sensorial things, or even having the window open and the breeze on my body, and then receiving the best cunnilingus ever in the new apartment, or imagining the boxes are still on they're there ready to unpack. So I was trying to eroticize the desire quite literally. And even with a new
right.
car, you can imagine, let's say, let's having sex in the car with your partner with this new kind of car smell. There are many ways if you have an imagination, because imagination is a very big tool. Even Napoleon Hill has a whole chapter called Imagination in Think and Grow Rich. I think for
Yeah.
any manifestation practice developing your imagination is a very worthwhile tool. especially just for visualization. It's not just about what you see, it's about what you feel. And that's really important. So you have to think about what is the feeling behind the desire. A new home can be stability, it could be greater commitment with your partner, it could be an investment. There are the different kind of reasons behind why you might want a new apartment. So it's just tapping into what does that feel like. It feels, for me, I think of safety, I think of expansion, comfort, things like
Mm,
that. Yeah. Mm.
wow. Well, I want to ask you, is this new sex magic? I guess is not new, is it? It's been around for a while. Can you say something about the history of it?
Yeah, I don't know too much. I mean, I put a bit of history in the book just because I thought I wanted people to know that it's not something I've invented, because I
Yeah.
know I'm aware that there is a current trend on TikTok about the O method. It's very popular on social media right now, but this is not something new at all. It comes from could be traced back to tantra or even paganism. People doing, I mean, tonight it's a full moon, so people were doing sexual rituals with moons for a very long time. And one of the most prominent figures in it is Aleister Crowley,
Oh
and he's
yeah.
very mixed a mixed bag of well, he
Yeah.
has kind of interesting things, but I mean, so I read a lot of books about it, and also the Kabbalah. There are some kind of roots of from the Kabbalah as well, and Tantra, as I think I mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I've personally dived a little bit into Tantra and Taoism, but in
Mm.
terms of history, years ago I came across some artwork. I think it was like really old artwork of hunters. You know those cave paintings
Mm.
of hunters chasing a mammoth or chasing something, but they all had erect penises pointing at the mammoth. And when I
Wow.
saw it, I was like, that's really odd. And when I was, and it seemed to be like these guys possibly were using their sexual energy. Hey, how about catching a mammoth? That was the most exciting thing in those days, not having a flat in Barcelona. Yeah, okay. So let me ask you, you mentioned a little bit about the law of attraction. Now, a law of attraction, of course, had its rounds for a while.
Mm.
How does sex magic, orgasmic manifestation connect with law of attraction, which is kind of the law of vibration, I suppose, how things are attracted to us or repelled even.
Well, I think both things are compatible. So I think if you're into law of attraction, you can definitely, make it more powerful with an orgasmic manifestation. So you could, just do different practices with the same goals that you have. And what's similar about it is that you're imagining that you already are living your desired reality. And that's really important. And you're imagining the feelings behind it and the gratitude. So there's no separation between you and the thing that you want to experience. So
Yeah,
that's what I would say is, but like, as you say, it's a vibration, it's a frequency, it's about alignment, the law of attraction. There are some practices such as visualization things or meditations or vision boards, things like that. But this is actually a devoted practice, so I think you
yeah.
can do both. Mhm.
Is it different for men or women? Do you think this
People ask me that
practice?
all the time, and what I say is, all the books I've read about it are written by men, so
Right,
it
right.
obviously works. So I think it might be the first female book I've read about this. But I mean, there people say, there's this debate in the spiritual world about male ejaculation. Are you losing energy or not? So I think it depends on yourself, how you feel after a certain situation. And in my book, I have a chapter called orgasmic manifestation without orgasm. So you can kind of have a mix and match of these different practices, such as sex transmutation, because you might be sitting on a train when you have these thoughts,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
not a place to indulge in any type of activity, obviously. But when you're looking out the window, you might want to just use your breath to kind of and thoughts just to kind of move the energy towards a thought of the new car or the new house or something like that. And then you get home and then you can do the sex magic, But another thing that's really cool is edging, which is something that most people do naturally anyway. So edging is when you stimulate yourself and you're about to experience orgasm, but when you're about to, you kind of decrease the intensity to make it last longer. People do that naturally through the breath and through the intensity of stimulation just to make things last longer and to make the orgasm stronger. But you can do that with or without an orgasm. And what's really interesting is if you do a practice of edging and then stop without any orgasm, you have this increased energy through your body. It's like having coffee. Like if you've not had a good night's sleep, you can kind of indulge in sexual stimulation and just stop, and then you're like, whoa, it's like sexual transmutation but way more powerful, because I think the feeling of sexual arousal starts in the genitals, but then when you start breathing, it's an expansive state where your whole body is part of it. So that's what edging does. So it's a
Oh,
really interesting concept.
Yeah. What about, I think in your book, you touch upon this whole, the spiritual aspect of it, touching the divine through sex, really, like
Mm.
sacred sex. So what about sacred sex? There's the manifesting, but some people might want to use it, I guess, for a greater way of connection, or is that also possible?
Absolutely. I think sexuality has so many I don't know how to say it's just so powerful, and it's not sacred for everyone. I think it's this personal expression. But
Yeah.
for me, I find it gives more meaning, knowing that it's such a powerful, sacred and spiritual expression. Because I think we've been repressed for far too long, and I believe that this repression comes from the fact that it is powerful. I think religions have just wanted us to just reproduce, 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 and the sexuality is not just for the reproduction. We can create not just humans but our dreams. So that's what
Yeah.
it's about, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, I think you might mention it in the book, because shame and guilt and all that, Catholicism and maybe Judaism, maybe, I don't, yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, What about someone who's got something latent? Would this practice possibly bring something up for them to heal? Possibly.
It could do, but I do believe that if you have something to heal, I think you need to go down more conventional routes, just to, having therapy and all of that. I think you need to, you know, I would never claim that this is a way to heal. I think that would be irresponsible. I think you need to go to the real people who can help you with that.
Okay. And then come back to the book.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, you talk about cosmic orgasm. Now,
Yeah.
again, is that sounds like it's a kind of deep ecstasy, a deepening or a heightening of touching something beyond our everyday identity, who we think we are. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the notion of a cosmic orgasm is very personal. And sometimes it can happen without even trying. It's just a result of an very elevated state of pleasure. And it can feel like this white light in your head and you're floating in the cosmos, or an out of body experience, or even a full body orgasm where it's not just like contractions in the genitals. It's just way more meaningful than that. And you have to kind of come back to the room and like, oh my God, that's really, maybe that's why we say, oh my God. All the time. I think God is present.
God is present. Yeah, absolutely. So, do your friends and family must have an inkling of what you're up to with your website and the book, and if so, how do they respond to it?
I think they've always just thought, just maybe like you, I'm a weirdo.
Okay.
I'm a, I'm a, I'm a weirdo. But I think what I find hard about this topic is that, when I writing books or doing workshops, it just flows so easily. But I do have to watch who is my audience, who am I speaking to, because I'm afraid of being judged
Yeah.
by other people, because I'm bringing two taboo topics together. Sexuality already makes people very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but you're bringing in this other element that's very woo woo, it's witchy, and then people think you've lost your mind. But however, on the positive side, lots of friends have manifested way bigger things than I have. So
Yeah.
it makes me think, oh, that's good, but I need to maybe start thinking bigger.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And in Spain, because Spain has got a history of Catholicism and repression and guilt and all of that, quite more than England. Is that a factor, or do you feel pretty free and liberal there, no matter what?
I think that might be the tradition, but I think since Franco died, I think there's been a big shift in attitudes. And I would say it's less Catholic now. I think, well, the great thing about it is that we have 19 bank holidays a year just from Saints' days, which is amazing,
Right.
But that's about it, really. I think a lot of people just have rejected the church a lot because of the repression during the Franco times. I mean, I often
Right.
equate, my family's Irish, so it's, there's a lot of, history, Ireland and Spain, but I would say Ireland is very different because people still, they're more churchgoers there, I would
It's
say.
still there. Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
there. I lived in a community full of Spanish people, which was fabulous. The Spanish
Mm.
get the guitars out, big parties, and the women were very liberal. I was quite surprised, very liberal. And I had a woman next door, a young woman, and she must have had 4 or 5 boyfriends because they come round different times. And I did say to her once, I think you were entertaining last night, and you really liked him, didn't you? Because I could hear very vocal and which is great. People in pleasure, fabulous. Let them have pleasures. But I was surprised because they're very liberal. The women I met who were from Spain, anyway. I'm sure they'll
I,
be interested in your book.
I think people are quite liberal here, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely in general. I think there's a lot of, even in Barcelona, there's lots of, polyamory communities. That's not my vibe at all, but people are, open to tantra or different types of ways of just opening up,
Yeah.
learning about sexuality. And I mean, my work here, I started off my blog 16 years ago, and
Wow.
it's 16 years. So it's a long time to be speaking about sex. But very soon after it, I became a columnist for GQ Spain, and I was writing. I wrote for El País as well. I wrote over 100 articles in Spanish, and people just it was embraced the sexual content. I used to be on Catalonia radio for 4 years speaking in Catalan about sex. So there was just this real openness about sexuality. I've also published books with Penguin Random House in Spain. And there was always a sex book of the year. I had this really cool book called English for Perverts. It's how to learn English with sex words, like proper grammar exercises. So
Very good.
I found that my content has been really well received with open arms.
Yeah.
Then I don't really do much content in Spanish anymore. I've gone
Okay.
international. Yeah.
Are you doing, if people want to work with you, are you doing one-to-ones? Are you doing webinars? Are you doing events?
I'm a bit shy about webinars, to be honest. I need to step out of the comfort zone. At the moment, I'm developing this coaching modality called the 8 Pillars of Self-Love, which has an element of self-pleasure in it, but it goes beyond that because I think it's my own struggle and my own journey in life.
Yeah.
And then the sex magic, I've done lots of webinars, or not webinars, but I've done workshops about it, and they're always very popular.
I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, because I think what's great about this is that it kind of brings, I would say it legitimizes self-pleasure because
Yeah.
people often feel ashamed about self-pleasure, thinking that sex has to be this some kind of deep thing with a partner all the time, which obviously that's the favorite, that's the best way to experience it, in my humble opinion. But I do believe that also masturbation can be something that's sacred, and it isn't a real expression of self-love. I think I saw something on with Jordan Peterson once saying that no one feels good after masturbation. I was like, well, it depends on how you do it. If you're watching porn and stuff, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that was the most empowering way to experience self-pleasure at all. I think that can be draining your energy and relying on seeing others risk their health for your pleasure. I'm not really sure that's a good way
No.
to
Is it
experience.
a bit like, because they say things like people who want to do a magic mushroom journey, for example, that the atmosphere and the ambience is everything, the vibration of what's around you. Is it the same that if you are going to have these kind of practices, you need to have a really peaceful, beautiful environment?
I've read in one of the books I read about this, they said, to clean up your house and all of that. And I'm quite messy, so I felt guilty. I was like, I'm never going to do it if I have to be clean all
Your
the
house looks
time.
pretty good from where I can see.
Yeah, you can't see this side here. There's a lot of
Oh,
boxes,
that's when the mess is. All right.
all the products that I receive. I think that's an interesting concept. But I do believe that when you're spiritually elevated, the environment is not that important. It's about what's inside you and your intention. I think that's way more important. I think the environment can help. And I
Yeah.
think there's lots of things that can help you, such as essential oils, or even having a bath before, even having some crystals nearby. I think you can kind of
Mm.
make an atmosphere that's going to help you just kind of make it more sacred, a more ritualistic, self-loving experience.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Well, Venus, good luck with the book.
Thank you.
May it flow, if you don't mind me saying so. May it
Yes.
flow. And
Thank you.
Orgasmic Manifestation, and you can get it, I guess, you can get it on Amazon, can't
Yes, it's
you?
on Amazon. Yeah.
And
Mm.
also so I'll put the links to your website, Instagram, and your podcast up with this recording. So it's lovely, and all the
Fantastic.
best for the book and your journey.
Thank you so much. And it's the full moon tonight, so a good time.
Yeah, good time to be practicing.
Exactly.
All right, Venus. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so
Lots of
much.
love.
Thank you.